So hello, everybody, and welcome back to Big Ideas on the Go. Thank you for joining us once again. I am happy to have as our guest this time around, Jacob Sorensen, the CIO of Bank of the West. Jacob, welcome to Big Ideas on the Go.
Great, thank you, Dimitri. Great to be here.
So Jacob, maybe just to kick things off, could you tell myself and the audience just a little bit about yourself, your current role, and maybe a bit about your background?
Yeah, sure. So I've been in technology and financial services for over 20 years. Started really with one of the first fintechs, a company called NextCard. And from there went on to a number of other organizations. I've been with Bank of the West for 11 years now. Been the CIO for 4 years. It's been a great journey, and I really enjoy what I'm doing.
Thanks, Jacob. One of the things since you've been there quite a while is I'm sure you've seen your fair share of digital transformation. And I know that as a bank, you're part of a much larger international bank. And having spoken to you before, I think I recall you mentioning that to some degree, you guys are looked upon as a vanguard in terms of innovation and transformation. So maybe you could talk a little bit about the shifts you've seen and the role you have in terms of digital transformation, both in security and in the data governance world.
Yeah, I think that this is it's a very interesting topic when we think about digital transformation. You're probably not in business today if you didn't start a digital transformation over a decade ago. And I think for financial services, certainly banking, this is an ancient industry, and two topics remain important: trust and risk. And so today, it's not just about whether you're protecting financial assets, but equally important is protecting personal information and identity. With the acceleration of these digital transformations, I think with the pandemic, the slope of that curve has increased even more. We're really seeing the acceleration. For Bank of the West, we saw our digital transformation accelerate about 3 years in the first 6 months of the pandemic. And with that, all the normal threat vectors have accelerated as well. And so at every level of our organization, we're talking about risk, we're talking about how to mitigate them. With our shift to Agile at scale, I am happy to see that our risk and compliance partners are now becoming parts of our squads and tribes. And so we're now starting to operate, as one team across the organization. And in fact, we've moved from a DevOps model to a DevSecOps model to really ensure our cyber compliance, even as the first line of code is written.
Maybe we could kind of double click on that kind of notion of risk and trust, and maybe kind of add a couple of thoughts around transparency and even integrity, right? Because I think that cuts across both the security of the data, the compliance of the data, but also how much you believe the data for projects around AI and BI and so forth. So maybe kind of give us your view on that landscape where you have security risk, you have compliance, which requires a degree of transparency, and then of course you have trust for purposes and integrity for purposes of value. Maybe you could talk a little bit about all three.
Yeah, security, the security aspect is paramount, but you also have to understand what you're trying to secure and where those vital assets are. Not every piece of information is created equal. And again, to come back to the new ways of working these days, we're seeing phishing way up. Certainly in the case of fraud, with the acceleration of digital payments. And so really understanding our data is key. And I know that's a bit of a cliche, but some of the AI and ML capabilities that we're looking at are really enabling us to change what I'll call the launch angle of our ability to scale the defense and respond. And so this gets into behavioral models on users, systems, network activities. All of this creates data. And again, that data is about identifying the patterns of the threats. We're also looking at some AI and ML techniques to effectively discover and create a better inventory of sensitive data across our data landscape, doing it much faster with much greater accuracy. And then I guess last I'll mention this notion of user and entity behavior analytics is picking up to provide us that context-based situational awareness.
Look, it sounds like you guys are doing quite a bit, and obviously, it may not. I don't think it's really cliche to say it's important to understand your data because we built the whole business on the predicate of
Sure.
knowing your data better. So, just like KYC is big in financial services, we think KYD is the next
That's
the
right.
next thing of importance. So, being a veteran of financial services, what's your advice to budding CIOs or CISOs or CDOs that are contemplating priorities vis-a-vis security or privacy or data governance?
I mean, the very first thing is talent. It starts with talent. The talent is also begets your culture. We are in a war for talent in this space. IT, cyber, data. It's at an all-time high. I know you know this, Dimitri, and certainly it's been disrupted. I'd say over the last couple of years. So first, talent. Second, adopt an agile mindset. Your teams need to adopt, morph, and really scale at the pace of change. The historical ways of working just are not going to get it done. Make sure that you're embedding your IT, your IS, and risk teams into squads focused on similar goals. The partnership between the CISO, the CDO, the CIO, the CRO is absolutely critical. It's critical that they have a shared agenda and that the teams see that. The last thing I'll mention is look for leapfrog opportunities. I mean, to really improve your data management and security challenges, we should really be looking at leveraging new technologies. I think relying on solutions architected in the prior century is not going to be a all-in winning solution.
Yeah, so maybe that's a great kind of jumping off for my kind of last question. So you talk about new technologies. You talked a little bit about activities via and leveraging AI ML to build inventories. You sit in the heart of Silicon Valley, right? So you get to kind of see what's happening. So maybe for the rest of us, what's happening? What should we be aware of, looking at? And please don't tell me it's NFTs.
Well, we're still you know, a bank, and so we don't get to play completely in the bleeding edge. So I'm not sure I'm going to hit all those marks, but certainly smarter and faster AI is towards the top of our agenda, leveraging these type of practices beyond the conventional use cases is really things we're exploring. Something I'm really excited about, this notion of data fabric. It's an emerging design concept, at least for us, and how we rethink the delivery of our data solutions end to end. The next one I'll mention, it's been around for decades, but graph technologies. Again, many firms using this, probably over the last 10 years, picking up more in financial services, but we see a lot of upside in terms of our ability to leverage this in data and analytics, using the graph technology to rapidly contextualize for decision making in terms of usage patterns or 360 customer understanding. Um, and then, last but not least, I think, um, again, really not bleeding edge, but how we're thinking about metadata, thinking about metadata almost as important as the actual data itself, and tying that into what we're thinking of as more active or augmented data management, and being able to leverage AI and ML and this data fabric to dynamically connect and detect, improve and optimize our data management practices.
Yeah, look, I think we're kind of in a similar vein and attitude, right? I think getting the right data to the right person and leveraging machine learning as an augmenting factor to bypass kind of manual stewardship is something we similarly think a lot about here at BigID. So that's great. Thank you. I think it provides kind of a firsthand vantage point from somebody kind of square located in kind of Silicon Valley, doing some of the pioneering work around data management, data risk, and data compliance. So, Jacob, thank you again for coming on our show and our podcast. We appreciate you coming. And maybe with that, I will say to our audience, I will just remind them to please subscribe to Big Ideas on the Go. And we always welcome reviews, especially positive ones. So please leave us a review wherever you download or listen to podcasts. Thank you again, Jacob.
Awesome. Thank you.